This has been an incredible summer for the celebration of sports films. Obviously earlier in the summer we saw the sequel to Space Jam. Finally, we've been waiting years for it. There's mixed opinions on whether or not it was of a certain quality, but we can talk more about that later. And of course, as we've been mentioning all throughout the show today, this week was the Field of Dreams game, the long-awaited Field of Dreams game, and that movie finally getting the recognition and celebration and the magic in the real world that it truly deserves, I like to think. But so in that spirit, I asked everybody to come into this final segment of the show today with their top 3 favorite sports films, because I'm very curious. This is an interesting category of cinema because it can range from a whole bunch of different places, from the emotional to the triumphant to the hilarious to the downright sad. But there's so much to get into. And Gigi, I'll start with you. I'm very curious as to what your top 3 sports films are, because from what I've heard, you have some very interesting choices.
Yes, I don't think anybody would choose the 3 that I chose because they're not necessarily that funny. But I'll just go ahead and list. I'm so happy we're doing this segment. And back to Space Jam, not a sequel. It's just a different Space Jam is what I was told going in. I did have a Space Jam shirt on, LeBron socks, LeBron backpack, and LeBron shoes going into the movie theater. And I kind of regretted wearing all that because I didn't like it, sadly. What movie I do like a lot, very symbolic, is A League of Their Own. It's not that funny, but it's a great movie. Great lines, Tom Hanks, Madonna, people you would love to see. And then my next one is actually Iverson, about Allen Iverson. And I thought it was just so cool and it gave really good insight into him. And I know I brought up the practice comment earlier, but yeah, I love that. And then most recently, another serious one would be the Naomi Osaka series, which I could consider a film because it's kind of played out in that way. And it's literally called Naomi Osaka. So it's about her. And yeah, I thought all 3 of those are ones that I really, really enjoy. I'm excited to hear yours though, because I do have one suggestion for one I need to watch, which is Field of Dreams. So hopefully I can expand my film knowledge after this.
We were actually advocating for Gigi, Dylan, and I earlier to get her to watch Star Wars. We really want her to watch that too, and Field of Dreams. I mean, that's obviously more important, but we're also advocating for Star Wars. But I've got an interesting list here. I think my at number 3, I have a movie that I have seen a ton of times. It's called Seabiscuit. It's a horse racing movie. It's such a well done, underrated, inspirational story of a horse that was basically written off because it had, I guess, birth defects. It was too small to be an actual racehorse. And if you put the horse next to horses in the movie like War Admiral, they were just gigantic, big, strong, fast horses. Seabiscuit was this little tiny brown little horsey, and the jockey Red was 6'4", whatever he was. He was gigantic for a jockey, and I think it's a great underdog at all doubts kind of story. And number 2 is a Spike Lee joint. I think we all know which one I'm alluding to, and that's He Got Game with Ray Allen. I don't know how much there needs to be said about this, but Jesus, it is such a great movie. And there I am with the corny line. But my number 1, and I'm going to get made fun of this. I already know. I've been made fun of this before. I've seen this about 7 or 8 times the whole way, is The Last Dance, the Michael documentary. It's so addictive. I can't explain why I watch it so many times. It's just that addictive between David Aldridge, Dennis Rodman, Pippen, Michael, Phil is in it. Jerry Krause is obviously not with us anymore, but he's got a presence in the film. Great journalists, Andrea Kramer. Who else is in it? Hannah Storm, I think, is in it. Everyone has had something to say. My beloved Patrick Ewing, of course, gets roasted because Michael built his Bulls dynasty pretty much on the Knicks' heads. But The Last Dance, I don't know why I can't stop watching it, but it's so good. I really can't. I can't defend myself why, but it's so good.
Some excellent answers from both of you. All wonderful films. I forgot about A League of Their Own. Personally, I can't believe I almost it eluded my mind, and I love that film.
Great movie.
Just great. It's a great film all around. Now, before I give my answers, what we're going to do here is I asked our producer Alex Wolz to give his opinion, and so from what I gathered, you're not going to be able to hear him, but what's going to happen is I can. So he's going to tell me, and then I'll tell you what he says. So, Wolz, I don't know if you ranked them or if you just have 3 films. Go ahead and tell me. The Blind Side, great film. The Blind Side, that's a good one. Creed, another good one. Okay. Cut. Oh, interesting.
Oh,
okay,
man.
all right. Okay, so our producer Alex Wolz just claimed one of his favorite sports films is the movie Cars, the Pixar film with Owen Wilson and Larry the Cable Guy, and I believe George Carlin's also in the first film. But that's an interesting question. But so before I give my answers, let's go around the room here. Gigi, we'll start with you. Is Cars a sports film?
Sorry, absolutely it is. It definitely is. I would also throw another one out there for us to consider. Is Forrest Gump a sports movie?
Now that's a great.
Ooh, okay.
That's one for me.
That's all I have to say about that. It is I love that movie too. I mean, I don't consider it a sports movie. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think it's a great movie. I think if you want to learn about life in the 20th century and how to go about things that happen, you watch Forrest Gump, okay? Between Jimi Hendrix all along the Watchtower in the Vietnam scene, and then Hey Joe when he beats up that guy in the what was it, the Black Panther scene? Yeah, that's what it was. And then the speech on the Lincoln Memorial at the pool, all the way to him marrying Jenny and the 12 Jennies that we have for shrimp and boats. It's such a well done, clever, handsome film that is so simple too. It's just such a simple idea. And it is like Field of Dreams and like some of these movies we've talked about has stood the test of time. I think that's the key with these sports movies, is that they can stand the test of time.
That's actually a great metric of thinking about it, Thomas. And you know, this is an interesting conversation here because I would say Cars is definitely a sports film in every sense of the word. In every sense, it's a sports film. I would argue Forrest Gump is at this point too. But this is an interesting thing because this is something we hear about Christmas films a lot, because there's a lot of films that take place during Christmas that we don't necessarily think of as Christmas movies. The main one people talk about is the movie Die Hard. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And that's a whole other conversation. We can have that during a December Christmas show. I don't want time to pass anymore without me giving my 3 films. Before I do that, also, I just wanted to give some honorable mentions of films we have not talked about yet that I think deserve to be talked about. One of them being Remember the Titans, an incredible football film. And the other one, maybe the funniest sports movie ever made, is Caddyshack. Just really just a great movie. But it's my top 3. The first one, well, I guess is my number 3, is an odd choice, but it's a Dwayne Johnson movie called Tooth Fairy. So he's a minor league hockey player in the movie. He ends up working for the Tooth Fairy. It's a wonderful movie. It's Dwayne Johnson, Stephen Merchant, Julie Andrews, Billy Crystal. It's a delight of a film. I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. It's a nice family film. I think you'd really like it. My number, and our producer Alex Wolf just mentioned another Dwayne Johnson movie. He plays a football player in The Game Plan. Great film. I would also recommend that. My number 2 movie is Space Jam. I'm a big cartoon fan, as you guys might know. So there's nothing better than Michael Jordan playing with the Looney Tunes. What's cool? And then my number 1 happens to be Field of Dreams. That would be my number 1 sports movie. And that's just me being an emotional baseball fan. But okay, so let's go around and we'll talk about this here. So how much sports, we'll start with you, Thomas, and we'll go to Gigi. How much sports needs to be in a film in order for it to be a sports film?
How much sports needs to be in a sport? Okay. Wow. Now, this is okay. I really have to think about this. I think when people say Forrest Gump is a sports movie, I think, yeah, the football scene at the University of Alabama where he's all like, I played so much football at Alabama, college went by really fast. And I think that it's just ingrained in people's brains. But I think it needs more than that. I think with movies like Field of Dreams.
Across the country, ILO. What more do you
Oh,
want?
he ran.
Yeah. It's a
he went
track
running.
movie. It really is a track movie.
A track movie, yeah. It's a running movie. He felt like running. But I think with Field of Dreams and He Got Game, they're kind of similar. Obviously, Spike Lee is a little bit more extreme in this sense because a lot of his films are rated R, and there's a lot of things that you wouldn't think to be that are in his movies, especially in He Got Game. I mean, Kobe doing work, that's not really like a rated R thing, but there's things you don't think of that are in his movies. And I think if there's sports are the formality, right? But there's an underlying theme. I think so long as sports are in the physical picture, but in the mind perspective of it, when you're thinking about the movie while watching it, there's an idea that goes beyond it. I think there needs to be a balance between that. If that makes sense where I'm going with it.
Oh, it makes so much sense. There has to be an idea that goes beyond that. And I think the biggest idea is motivation and passion. I feel like a sports movie is one that excites you as if you were playing the most important championship game of your life soon. I feel like every sports movie that we've talked about that I've seen, which is few of them, it motivates me to want to get up and go do something and go be a part of that mindset where you just excel. Forrest Gump, I would say, has enough sports in it too to be a sports movie. Ping pong, running, football. I would also say another sports movie that I think has enough sport in it for sure to meet our criteria of it being on your mind presently while you're watching the film is Happy Gilmore. I don't think about that one. It just hit me when you were talking, Dylan. And I would say that too, that's another one too that would excite me beyond the film, which I guess any good movie does. And it makes you want to like go bond with your grandma, but also go see how well you can hit a ball too. So yeah, I think the sports movie has enough sports in it to meet this criteria where you know that's what you think about when you think about the film, but it also pushes you to get up off that couch that you were just sitting on watching it and maybe go do something. Maybe not tonight, but tomorrow when you wake up. That's what I would say a sports movie does.
It's absolutely a fair point. And you know what's interesting is, you mentioned how, some kind of passion and intensity might need to be there in order for it to be a sports film. But I think that unfortunately excludes some of the great sports comedies that we've seen. We mentioned Caddyshack. We mentioned Happy Gilmore. There was another one I was thinking, oh, yes, that's right. Will Ferrell's movie Kicking and Screaming. To me, that's a sports movie. I don't know, have you guys ever seen that movie?
I haven't, but I've seen Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights, that's another great sports comedy. It's so Kicking and Screaming is Will Ferrell playing a dad who coaches his son's youth soccer team. It's peak Will Ferrell, and it's brilliant. And Mike Ditka's in that movie. It's just fantastic. It's really good. Now, in that mind, we have like a minute left here. Just quickly, does anyone have any sports movies they think are terrible? And you can say Thunderstruck. It's okay.
Yeah. Thunderstruck was the one I was going with. That was all time bad. It felt so cheap. That's the word I'm going to use here. It felt really cheap in literal sense and in a verbal adjective describing sense.